everyone. Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Eastvale. My name is Molly Courtson, as always, and today we're joined by Adam Rush, and he was actually Eastvale's very first mayor. So it's been almost 15 years, but you were on the council for about 8 years. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. Good morning, Eastvale. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. And it has been a minute since I was originally on council, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you. We just had Kelly Howell on. We're bringing back a lot of the first original people because we're hitting our 15-year anniversary. So we're trying to pay respects to, like the original council, the original city, and kind of where we were. So we wanted to ask you some questions about that.
wonderful.
So, yeah. So thank you. But first, we're going to ask you fun, get to know you questions. So
I'm scared.
don't be scared. I know you said you're not fun, but I think we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We're going to get you. Okay. First, are you more type A or type B?
I'm definitely type A. I have a little bit of OCD in me that's healthy, but I think a lot of people in politics are type A, very driven, a little obsessive about certain things, but have that type A personality with just a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
that drives them.
Yeah.
It's hard to be in politics or in the public eye if you're not that type of person.
Yes, I agree. I'm very, very type A. But there are some type B people we have at City Hall, I would say. But I feel they're not too bad type B. Like there's some type B people that I'm like, I could kill you, I think. But at least at City Hall, they're not too bad. So yes. Okay. If you had your own podcast and you could have anybody on it or like any topics, it could be whatever you want. Like who would you have? What would you talk about?
So I gave some thought to this, and I do listen to a lot of podcasts on a variety of subjects, but mostly they're history orientated. My son and I listened to one that probably can't repeat on air, but it's
Okay.
Ad A of the week,
Okay.
and they feature a historical figure that slaughtered 1,000 of their enemies the ninth century or something of like that nature. So I think it would definitely be a partner podcast, probably my son and I, he's 11, focused around history
Okay.
because we both love history. We're history nuts. We've gone to a lot of national parks, a lot of museums. And I think our first guest would probably have to be an ancestor of both of ours, Benjamin Rush, who that's also my son's name is Ben. And I believe he's my seventh or eighth great uncle. And he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Actually sat at the same table as Benjamin Franklin because they were both from Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh.
So you can see his signature on the Declaration. And that would probably be our first guest if we could just pick his brain as to why he decided to go that path, which a lot of people have said, I've kind of emulated in the past. And so that would be our podcast.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of interesting.
I love that. And I feel, it's definitely got to be like in your blood, in your genes, because you're our first mayor. So that's really exciting.
Thank you.
I would recommend you should have you ever listened to History's Greatest Mysteries? It's like a podcast.
Yes.
You have listened to that.
I have listened
What do
to
you
that.
think? Good or you?
I like it. I actually prefer history that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit more like conversational and goes in a chronological order. So they started from I'm going to geek out here, the 7 Years' War, or what used to be called the French and Indian War. And now they're up to pre-World War II FDR. And it's been going on for about 5 years. And so it's a little bit in the weeds because there's like 6 episodes on the progressive era, which only if you're a history nerd. But I listen to History's Greatest Battles, which they go far back, like, 4th, 5th century England, all the way up to like the 100 Years' War and stuff like that. So
You really are like a history guy.
I almost decided to major in history, but then I realized there's not much you can do with a history degree. There wasn't actually much you could do with the degree I wound up getting, but that's a different story.
Wait, what did you get it in?
So I was pre-med.
Okay.
My first 2 years, I went to Claremont McKenna College, which is a very small liberal arts school.
Yeah.
About 1,300 students. My wife actually went to San Diego State University. And so
So different. Like the most different schools ever.
It was, yeah. Her largest class was about half the size of our student population, about 600. So it was night and day. But I realized I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor. Um, I walked out of my calculus final and decided it wasn't for me. So next semester, I walked into a philosophy class with older professor who's probably passed on now that had a pet wolf named Gretchen.
Oh,
And it was a 140-pound, very docile gray wolf that he had on a leash, and he walked around campus. And it was a political philosophy class. And so I wound up actually getting a degree in philosophy. I focused on existential philosophy, which is like the Matrix. We're not really here. We're all in big brain. I'm going to realize I couldn't do much with that. So I went to grad school and got my degree in political science, my master's in political science.
okay. I'm a political science grad also.
Okay.
But there was a moment where I was like, oh, I'll be pre-med. And then, yeah, I also realized like I'm not smart enough to do that.
Yes.
So, here we are. I guess the pre-med's a government pipeline is kind of big.
It is. In high school, if you can hack it, it's not too bad. But when you get to college and you actually have to do like organic chemistry and physics, it's,
Yep.
realized it wasn't for me.
Yeah, it's not what it's cracked up to be. Okay, well, I have one more question, and I think I was gonna ask you something, but I'm gonna change it to something else. Okay, I asked Kelly this, so I want to ask you: if you could make anything illegal, like something ridiculous, not something like actually serious, what would you have be illegal?
What would I have be illegal?
And it's like something like I said like people playing their music out loud. I feel that should be illegal. I'm like, why are you doing that?
Okay, so I'm going to ask a clarifying question. Is this, and this is nerdy too, is this local, state, or federal laws? Because
I think it could be anything you want.
Anything?
Yes, if you can make something illegal, it does not get to exist anymore.
Well, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but people can't do it.
Yes, you can't do it.
I would say excessively dancing at the gym by yourself. Because there are some people at the gym that my wife and I go to where it's just very annoying when people are like dancing to EDM. I think I'm old, so and like some people are twerking by themselves with their headphones on. And I played football in high school and college, and so my idea of going to the gym is
You're working out.
you're working out. You put your headphones in, you put your head down low, you don't talk to anybody, you do your thing, and you leave.
Yes.
You don't chit chat, you don't do, and the whole social media updates, I don't have a problem with that. But people that are like, rather not just like kind of swaying, but like excessively dancing like they're at a rave or something, I would make that illegal and punishable by hard labor, like breaking rocks.
That is like so much more funny than anything I thought you would say. I love that. And I was just talking to people at the office because I've been seeing a phenomenon lately that maybe I'd make illegal. I've been seeing a lot of people at the gym in jeans. And there's this guy, I see it every day, and he'll be in jeans and cowboy boots. And it doesn't really bother me because it's like, that's not my business, but I just find that so interesting. Like people have really interesting gym attire. I've seen people in flip-flops. I've seen people just like wearing the craziest stuff.
Crocs are a big thing.
Yeah, the Crocs, flip-flops. But the cowboy boots, I'm like, that's kind of pushing it for me.
Yeah, I mean, they have attire and gym clothes. I know like the whole like fit check is like a big thing. My daughters have pants that are, more expensive than some suits I have.
Oh, good.
But you can go to, where do people go shopping? Target, Amazon. You get your sweats for $5.
Yeah. You can find cheap stuff. That's why I'm confused. Like, did you not know you were coming here? Or
they probably don't have any other clothes.
That's what I'm wondering. But I've been seeing that a lot lately. Like a lot of jeans, a lot of interesting outfits at the gym. And I'm like, that's not what I would work out in. But I like the dancing one.
Kind of.
I agree. I like people to kind of lock in. Like, I don't want to be there for like 20 hours because everyone's like messing around. There's a lot of people who will work out together in groups too and kind of like they're just talking.
Yes.
And I'm like, let's move it along.
I'm rude too. I will walk up and be like, are you guys done? And usually they're, younger than me. And so then they kind of get like, oh, okay, we'll move on.
Yeah. Are you using this? Yeah.
Yeah. I won't be rude. I'll be like, get off. I just like, how much more you guys got?
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I do that too because I'm like, I'll be a little chill, but like 30 minutes, that's kind of
Yeah.
excessive, it's pushing it. So,
So that would be my new law.
okay, I like that. That would give me a lot of insight, I feel, on you. Okay, I'm glad. So, let's jump into the real stuff, the hard stuff now. So, obviously, like we incorporated in 2010, you are our first mayor ever. I mean, you kind of already alluded to it a little bit. This is like in your blood, in your veins. Did you think ever that you were going to run for office, or did this kind of like fall in your lap, or what was your journey to get to being the first mayor?
It wasn't, you know, glamorous or that interesting. I mean, it did kind of fall into my lap to a certain extent. So I was working at the County of Riverside. My background is in planning and land use, real estate development, that kind of stuff. And I went to a meeting at Shirley Wolf's house, and she was the treasurer of the Eastvale Corporation Committee. Her and her husband, Rick, lived in Eastvale, and it was a meeting in her backyard. And it was really a kind of retaliatory effort to combat what we had been hearing from Harupa, that they wanted to annex or incorporate as a city and annex all of Eastvale.
Okay.
And for those who have been in the community for a while know that Harupa and Eastvale are very different communities.
Really do.
Both have, their positives and negatives, but just very different communities.
Yes, for sure.
And there was some hostility. And so we had some expert or somebody that knew something about incorporations. I didn't really know that much at the time. I had done a lot of annexations when I was in the county, but those were run of the mill, like parks districts and trash districts, things that weren't very interesting.
Yeah.
And they said the only way that we can officially fight this is to form an incorporation ourselves. And so they basically were like, okay, we're going to do that. Who wants to help? And I raised my hand.
Oh,
And that was March, I think, of 2007.
okay.
There then was a community meeting at Harada. There was maybe about 80 people there, which is decent for a nighttime community meeting.
Yeah.
And I wasn't on the incorporation board because by then we had an attorney who was helping us, who ended up being our first city attorney, John Kavanaugh, and said, because you work at the county, probably take a little bit of a back seat. So they gave me the interesting title of fundraising subcommittee chair.
Okay.
Which basically means I got to put up the easy ups and sell t-shirts and donuts
Okay.
on the weekends.
Okay.
To try to raise money, because this whole effort, cost about $250,000.
Yeah. A lot of money.
So we had a meeting of the community. The incorporation committee was kind of installed. So Jeff de Grand Prix, Kelly Howell, Shirley Wolf, Greg Pava. I can't believe I actually remember these names. And I actually had flown that night on vacation. We left directly from Eastvale to LAX. I think we were going to Hawaii or something for an anniversary. So we get back like in 2 weeks, and it was like wildfire. And I had like an email address and all of these invites and stuff. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? At the time, I was married but didn't have any kids. And, I had gone to school for politics. And so I was like, okay, well, we started doing stuff. We went to stuff on the weekends. It gained speed, and we did the petition drive. And then at that point I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
There was a lot of work. I'm done. And, everyone in the group was like, no, you need to run for city council. I'm like, I really don't think I want to. At that time, our first child I got 3 kids. I was born in 2009, and, new baby. We had just bought a house. I'm like, I can't do all this. And it was, no, you should really do it. You have the background. So I went home and asked my wife, and I think if she could go back in time, would probably say
Never mind. Yes.
But she said, well, if it's something you want to do, both of us having no idea what it was going to entail.
Yeah.
Said, okay. So I hired a consultant. I raised money. I filed the paperwork. I think there were 16 candidates.
Wow.
For the first city council, because when it was the incorporation, we got the petitions and all that. Went to the county, was approved.
Yeah.
they split between Harupa and Eastvale and moved our boundary back and all that history. Uh, went to the election and I got the most votes out of all 16 candidates
Okay.
because the election was, do you want to incorporate, yes or no? What do you want the name of the city to be? I think one of the options was like Corona Valley, which
Interesting.
seems weird in retrospect. Like if we got our name Corona Valley,
Yeah.
but you had to have an alternative name. So Eastvale was pretty obvious. And then they had 16 candidates on the ballot because there was no original council.
Yeah.
And so woke up the next morning and I can't remember how many votes I actually got. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was the top. And I was like shocked. And at 6:34, I remember a guy from Edison was the first one to call me. And then that day was just like a blur. I got all these calls and, people, it's like, not that I won the lottery, but
Yeah.
when someone does, everyone becomes your new
Best
friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a whirlwind. It was about 3 years of just a lot of work. And, then it's like, okay, well, I didn't know that that was going to result in being the first mayor, but I said, well, obviously have a lot of stuff to do. So we had from June to October to basically get everything set up.
Oh my goodness. So now, like I keep saying, we're about to hit our 15 years. So I'm sure that the city has changed a lot, Are you still in Eastville? You live in the area or not?
Yes, no,
Oh,
we do live in the area. We live Archibald and Schleichman.
okay.
We've been here full time since 2005.
Okay. So what has surprised you the most, I guess, about the direction of the city? Is there anything that you're like, man, I never thought this would happen?
Not really. And I say that because not that what the city has developed into isn't great, but being in the position that I was, and I do long range planning. And so I knew the plan for the community. Obviously, that hasn't been stuck to 100% for, a variety of reasons, good and bad. But I knew what the long term build out of the community was going to be, the boundaries and things of that nature. Um, the time that things have taken are pretty consistent. So I had, the expert knowledge to understand how things were going to flow and develop. I think the only thing that really has surprised me is just the diversity of the commercial areas that we have. The Costco. Never thought we would have a Costco.
Yeah, we got that big Amazon too, different things.
Yes, and when the warehousing and Amazon started really coming into play, so that property was going to be apartments for a long time. It got completely converted. Um, the Limonite interchange, not that it's 100% our project, but I never thought the Hammer Bridge was going to get fixed.
Yeah, for a long time.
And the Limonite Bridge, it's still a little bit nerdy, but I tell people how much more expensive that bridge was because it's not a straight line. It's like a little askew. And, I helped work on that. So some of those big projects that I don't know if anybody, that's not in the industry understands how expensive those things are. I'm surprised that all of those got done. The Limonite Bridge, the interchange, the Hamner Bridge. I mean, that's probably $250 million worth of infrastructure that we were very, very lucky to be able to get. And so that's surprising. But I think the community has progressed in kind of the vision that we had. Not everything's gone according to plan, but we understood that.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm surprised we just didn't fall flat on our face.
Yeah.
That it actually
we really thrived.
have survived because it was tough in the beginning with zero money, zero space, zero staff.
Yeah.
Starting in 1,000 square foot office building to what we have now.
Yeah, I know. It's been really interesting. I've been here now. I'm working towards 4 years. So, I mean, a decent amount of time. Thank you. Even in the very short time that I've been here, the city has changed a lot, especially with like staffing. When I started, I think we had like maybe 40 employees, like 35, 40. And now we're getting in the 70s. So that is exciting in just a few years. And, it's good to hear your insights on, like, the bridges and the infrastructure because I think a lot of people want these products to go up quick, and they think because they don't understand what's going on behind the scenes that we are, like, dragging our feet. But some of these projects have been decently quick, like, from when we started actual construction of Lamonite Gap, like, broke ground, within, like, a year, like, a little over a year, we had that bridge, like, completed. So, obviously, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to get to that even first groundbreaking. Same thing with Hamner Bridge, that took a long time, and that frustrates people, but people don't understand, it's like the money, the time, the grants, the million things of the checklist that you have to go through. So it's actually in some people's brains, they're like, "Oh, this was kind of a fail," but they're huge successes. And, to do them in the time we did, even though the place that the city's gone in the 15 years is definitely a huge success to have 0 money to being where we are financially.
They are, and I think a lot of the newer residents from Orange County, LA County, come from communities that are already built up and completed, and so haven't gone through that process of seeing all of the
Yeah.
dust and the construction, so
Definitely. So if you could go back to, like, your young self, your first year as mayor, would you give yourself any particular advice to kinda get you through those beginning
I
years?
would, don't take on so much. I think I tried to put a lot on my shoulders. Don't join so many darn committees,
Yeah.
because at one point I was on about 15 different committees,
That is crazy.
which you get a stipend for, but with your time and effort and,
Yeah.
back then we still had paper. I don't know if anybody remembers what that is, but paper agendas.
Yeah.
When we got iPads for our agendas, it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I was going to LA 3, 4 times a week.
Mhm.
Thankfully, I was able to take the train out there, but just don't jump in with 2 feet and
Mhm.
then,
Yeah.
sink, because took on a lot. And I was young, Kelly was young. We put a lot on our shoulders, and I think we felt that pressure to do so. But I would tell myself, just, pace yourself. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I know it's cliche, but
Mm.
took on a lot of stuff early
Mhm.
on, and it was hard not to get burned out.
Yeah. That's great advice, and I think too, I mean, obviously, you know this, but for people watching, I think there's a lot of people who don't know that being on the city council is not a full-time job. I mean, it is, but it's not technically. And so our first episode, we had Councilmember Rigby and Councilmember Lorimore on, and they were like, "Oh yeah, a big misconception is that people think this is our full-time job." And we had so many people reach out to us and be like, "I had no idea this was not their full-time job." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's hard because hours, it probably is almost a full-time job, but it's not paid as a full-time job. It's not, this they're doing this on top of their real full-time jobs and their families and their kids and their lives and their everything else that's going on. So to do so much work and it's not considered a full-time job, I think is another thing that people don't know where they kind of forget about. Like they want people to do things quicker or they're like, "Oh, this person took a day to call me back." Well, they have a full-time job and a full family and a full life and schedule and their own things going on. And then this. So it's a lot to juggle for sure. Like just doing this alone on its own is a lot to juggle, but then everything else included is kind of almost impossible. But
It's a tremendous amount, and when I went to work after the election, my colleagues were asking how much time I had left. I'm like, "What are you talking about? Weren't you quitting?" And they saw that misconception because you watch the news and you see, the mayors and council members from LA or San Francisco or New York, and that's a full-time position.
yes.
And when we started participating, on a more regional basis, uh, most of the city council members from other cities were either retired
Yeah.
or, they were real estate agents. They were attorneys that could make their own schedule,
Yeah.
this
Their own business owner.
own business owners. I mean, this is way before COVID, had their own schedule and were, established. I mean, Kelly and I were young.
Yeah.
There's a few kind of younger folks now, but I mean, we were probably at least 7 to 15 years younger than the average age of our colleagues.
Mhm.
And so we're like,
Definitely.
oh, this is I mean, she was a teacher. I was a public employee.
Yeah.
Luckily, most of the meetings were in the building I worked in,
Yeah.
so I could just go downstairs. But
Mhm.
the people looking at you and like, oh, did you take your lunch break for that meeting?
Yeah.
I used all of my vacation time for 2 years
Oh my
going to meetings just from one floor in my building to the other floor because people were pulling our records and making sure that I wasn't going to a city meeting on county
oh
time.
my goodness.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about that too, being a public employee. That's extra eyes that are on you for that.
Yes.
Wow. That's difficult. So, I mean, I think that's good advice though, that it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. I think we've done a lot of things very quickly, but I think also we're learning the value of sometimes it's better to just like take your time and, do it right than do it fast. So, that's good advice. Well, thank you for giving us the insights. Thank you for coming on. I don't know if you have anything else to share. Anything else?
No, I think I've said enough.
Okay.
I really appreciate it. This is an awesome opportunity. So
Well,
I
thank
wish you
you
all
for coming on.
the best and luck in your show.
Yeah, thank you. And it's almost once again, our 15 years. So we're excited to have our first ever mayor on. I think it'll be really cool to have you on. The season actually, as we're filming this, hasn't even come out yet, but
Yeah.
it's about to. So we're going into season 3. We're going into your 15. It's a really exciting time. So thank you for being one of our first guests of the season.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you all later.
Okay.